Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clarity House. This is my second video of the day, which means that I've now done this twice in 3 weeks, and I haven't done it twice in, I hadn't done it twice in a day for probably 3 years before that. So something going on over here. But I just had to have a topic that I really wanted to bring up. Because I mentioned this in the other video, but I talked with a student yesterday, and he said he was watching a Satsang, the guy that he enjoys. He says he's a very, very nice guy. And he said, but when I listened to his Satsang, I just noticed that really he was just kind of going in circles. There was, in other words, he wasn't actually bringing anybody home. There was nothing actually happening other than, you know, the spread of information and maybe good feelings, right? Out of which anything can happen, right? You could wake up at an intensive or a retreat, and you put enough people on a bus enough times, and they'll wake up too. Somebody there will wake up. So what we're talking about here is something that is predictable and reliable, and I don't find much of that, but I do find it here, which is the good news. So I don't need to find it much because I was my first student, and it worked here. That's your job. If you wake up, it's your primary job is to stay awake. What you are is much more than anything that unit could ever do for the planet. If you want to be the most beneficial that you can, stay awake, stay alert, pursue this. Don't think those old guys up there, those hermits in China and India and in caves and up in mountains and all that. Don't think they weren't doing the world any good. Don't think they weren't doing their share. They were, and their only other job actually is to keep the body alive so that the teaching can occur. That's the only other job it has. Now, these units have preferences, and preferences will sometimes be met and very often not be met. And I'm not deeply attached to either conclusion, but the biology is just so very easily satisfied. I mean, you know, what do I need? Peanut butter and jelly and a roof and some clothes and a lot of other stuff that is the psychology desires, but the biology is actually satisfied very quickly. So I've explained why I wanted to do this. Now here's what I'm going to tell you. The reason that books and videos and satsangs, whether online or in person, do not work very well is very simple. This teaching is a one-on-one affair. And this teaching is certainly a one-on-one affair. How do we know? Because it stresses one-on-one, except for satsang on Sundays. But satsang on Sundays is used more often for clearing than it is for awakening. It's once in a while awakening will happen in there, or a reawakening will happen in there, which is great, but it's not what we normally do. We're just people that are all in post-awakening, that are all experiencing challenges in relativity. Hello, those relativity is not kicked out, right? Relativity is not nullified by the awakening experience. It really is not. It's still my experience. I mean, it doesn't make any difference whether it's true or not. It's my experience, and who am I? I'm awakeness. So it's a divine experience that it's worth paying attention to. But when you go to, if you read a book, then as a general rule, it's more than a book can do. I'm not saying there's no exception to that, but there are exceptions to everything. Awakeness can wake up through when it wants, how it wants, through it wants, at any time. So there are no rules. That's what I love about this. There are no rules, but I just noticed that there are patterns, right? And that the book thing, I have books myself. I hope you buy them. I hope you read them. I hope you get something out of them. And I do get, just so you know, I do get email every week on somebody who's woken up from my books or my videos. And that's great. But I'm going to tell you, if you were one of them, consider satsang, because if you don't pursue it, it's probably going to wane. Probably. Exceptions to that too. I've met some of them. I know some of them. The people who've woken up with me that are exceptions to that rule. But they're not exceptions to the fact that they continue to pursue. And let's look at what we were talking about, pursue, because there can be sense in post-awakening that I just need a little more, that there's just a little more available. And number one, that's a dream in operation, because that's a character that's chasing more. And I don't care if you are the supreme spiritual teacher of all time. If you're chasing more, we're talking about a character. Now, if there is an interest in more, but it's not a desperate pull. A desperate pull for more is egoic. It just will be. And I don't know of any exception of that. But an interest in seeing in deepening experience, we're just going to use these words, deepening understanding, even though there's no understanding this. That can be the inner teacher, but it's not going to ever be desperate. It's not going to ever really be forceful, unless it is. Because I can tell you that well, it wasn't really in the early awakening here, but in the fourth year of my awakening, after my awakening, is when people began to wake up, and there began to be a feverish thing. But that was and it wasn't to save the world. It was to expand this teaching. I never had any concept whatsoever that I could save the world or that I needed to. Although I think I've made reference to it once in a while, because I just was lost early on. I mean, I just didn't, the clarity that there was early on, it just isn't what's here now. And, we all go through stages, and I'm not going to hunt down the video where I've said something that I don't agree with in order to delete that video. I said what I saw as clearly as I could see it on that day, and this is another day. So if you've heard me say something before, and you hear me say something today that doesn't go along with that, pay attention to what I say today. This is always going to be more true. So everybody, I'm coming to understand where I'm coming at you from, and all of you know this already, but but I've had thousands and thousands of sessions with people. I've been teaching on the internet now for 7 years. Been teaching on the internet for 7 years, and I was teaching before that. Actually, I've been teaching on the internet for 8 years. God Almighty, I can't believe it. Well, that's the truth. Yeah, since 2011. So for 8 years, and I taught for a couple of years around here, informally for a couple of years before that. But when it was around here, there was an egoic pull, because I wanted everybody to notice that I was awake. That was really what was important to me, which means that I wasn't awake. But it does mean that there was wakefulness, as I discussed in the other video. There was a lot of wakefulness, but there wasn't really clarity. There was oscillation for the first 3 years here, because I didn't have a teacher, and I was too proud to get one. If you're too proud to get a teacher, then just get out, right? I mean, honestly, if that's what it is, just get out. Because that's what I did. I was just too proud, and it's just stupid. Because you may wake up by yourself. It's unlikely, but it can happen. But it's almost impossible to clear out here. Because once you come from the awakened point of view, you will get no backup from the world. You'll get no agreement from the world, which is another reason to come to satsang, is because you will get a lot of insight and understanding. You're coming into a room where everybody knows exactly what you're talking about, no matter how weird it is. Somebody in there, and usually more than one somebody, will have gone through that themselves. But what I've found in maybe somewhere 20,000, 1,500 awakening sessions. I don't know, 1,200. Who cares? A bunch, a whole bunch. But I really do want to impress the whole bunch, because I want, and thousands of sessions, if you include clarity sessions, I want to, which are often reawakening sessions. I want to impress the whole bunch, because I want to tell you that I come from vast experience in the field, working with people just like you. And when I say people just like you, I mean people just like me. Just a regular guy that got really, really lucky, and awakening occurred. And then there was some kind of energy that directed it to pursue it and all of that. And it just lucky. But working with regular folks, and not people that were born special, and not people that were like they had this one is to be enlightened on their forehead when they were born or anything. Just regular folks. And I'm going to tell you that everybody is stuck. That everybody has their own little place where they're stuck. And then everybody has the big common place where they're stuck, which is the bubble of self-reflection, which I told you about before. Whoever you are, if you're not awake to your true nature right now, this is where you are. If you believe that you understand this intellectually, but it's just not your experience, that's the experience of the bubble of self-reflection. If you know that if Bob knows there's no Bob, but there's still misery, that's the bubble of self-reflection. But the thing is that that's the general thing, and I could go after the general thing. The problem is that every bubble's a little different. Every bubble's, it's the same bubble, but because it's an imaginary bubble, which means that it's a bubble that's arising from the patterns and conditioning that we call Bob. It's just Bobness. There's no Bob there. But thoughts arise. They don't arise from anybody to anybody, but they arise. And some thoughts are the default position here, and with you too, is to believe the thoughts that arise. It's no longer the default position here. It may not be the default position over there anymore, but in most cases it will be. So there's that, but you cannot break the bubble from the outside. I can't break anybody's bubble of self-reflection. I can wake up almost everybody, but can't wake up everybody, because there'd be some people that are in the bubble of self-reflection just will not budge. And there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing they can do about it. Nobody is screwed up. I haven't failed. They haven't failed. It's oneness is called, and oneness apparently is still enjoying the ride of that unit for right now. So what I can do is I have a tremendous amount of influence because of the teaching, the skeletal structure of the teaching that arrived here, boom, and then that arrived here in 20. Well, it began arising long before that, but actually made itself known to me in the summer of 2012. That's when I saw that there was quote something you could do. Not that there's anybody there, but it's still going to feel like that it's something that you can do. So with the arrival of that, and then in the arrival of 1 year later, in the summer of 2013, of the homecoming story, which became a huge, huge tool for me. Some could call it a crutch. For the next 3 years. And I have developed tremendous influence on having you bust the bubble, because that bubble is impenetrable from the outside. Nobody can bust it for you. You got to bust it. Now, it's an imaginary bubble. This is good news, which means that you don't actually have to do anything to break the bubble, except notice that it's an imaginary bubble. But that is a lot harder than you might think, because Number one is that the odds are very, if you're not awake to your true right nature right now, then you don't know, then you don't actually know who wakes up. You just don't. You think it's going to be that unit. You think it's going to be that character. You think it's going to have something to do with a you, and it's not. It just has to do with you. So, but there's a tremendous amount of influence over here. You can't do it on a mass basis. I couldn't walk into a room of 1,000 people and wake up 1,000. I couldn't walk into a room of 1,000 and wake up 500, probably. But I probably could walk into a room of 1,000 and wake up 100. I don't know that, but I'm just guessing because of the general nature of the bubble of self-reflection, and I've got enough insight and experience working with the bubble that I'm going to guess that I could probably wake up a bunch of people at one time. Years ago, I woke up several people at the same time in Asheville, but they didn't wake up as deeply as people that get it one-on-one, and I stopped doing that. And I've decided, you know what? I want them to wake up as deeply as possible, and this thing carries best one-on-one. The good news for you is that I'm not the only guy in the world who's going to be able to do this. I am training other teachers. I've got one in the field now, my friend Gary, and I've got 9 other people in teacher training right now, and they're going to be able to do this. So this thing is growing like a weed, and you don't have to be struck by lightning anymore. And I'm a little bit better known, a hell of a lot better known than I was 5 years ago. So you don't have to be struck by lightning in order to wind up in front of my videos. You go poking around YouTube and with non-duality, you're going to find Fred Davis. But I can't do it on a mass scale. Now, I'm not going to mention any names because these are good teachers, and some of them I very much respect, and some of them I actually love. And I'm going to love all of them on the deepest level, but I mean, on a more personal level, there's some that I really love. But these people are in massive teachings. They had nothing to do with that. It's just the way that teaching developed. They have massive teachings with vast followings. And for a one-on-one teaching, I have got one hell of a vast following for a one-on-one teaching. But the following here doesn't compare to those. And I don't have retreats where I get 100 people or 50 people or 25 people together in order to do something semi-intensive with you, where you might actually get a little one-on-one time, which can move you down the road. And people wake up at retreats, have awakening experiences at retreats, and people have awakening experiences at intensives and at Satsang even. They'll have awakening experiences, but not very often. Maybe the numbers are not bad, but the percentages are just unfathomably poor. I mean, that's the truth. Non-duality is the sharpest teaching that I have ever seen, and it just is. And I think Advaita is incredibly skillful, but Zen is very, very skillful. But the problem is they're very, very good at the clearing part, but even in Zen, in many, many schools, they have left out the waking up part, where there are a lot of people that have been in Zen for 20 years who don't even believe in enlightenment anymore. They don't even talk about it. It's not discussed. Why? Because that's just something the old guys used to talk about. What we really have is a Zen lifestyle, and it's a great lifestyle, and that's wonderful. But if you don't know who you are, get out and go find a Zen teacher that does know who they are and does know and can help you know who you are. Because go sit in a corner and stay there might be good advice if you've got, if you're destined to go wake up in a corner. But the people that wake up with me have been in corners 20, 30, 40, 50 years. One person, 2 people, even 60 years were in the corner and they didn't wake up. So don't bet the ranch. I'm just saying, find what works. Go find something that works. And for me, I just noticed that the books and that videos, including this YouTube, and people will write me, they wake up from my YouTubes. I got a letter this morning from someone who woke up from one of my podcasts. And it's as clear a letter of awakening as anybody ever wrote. And so I can guarantee, I mean, it was no question in my mind was that it was authentic. And I hope that it has duration and all of that. I can't know one way or the other. But people certainly do wake up from this teaching in all kinds of different ways, because I get email, I get thank you mail every day. Thank you for blah, blah, blah. Changing my life, helping me with this, taking me out of it, whatever. And Fred gets the email, but God gets the credit. Fred gets the money, but God gets the credit. I can't take any of the credit. I just can't. It's just because I don't do it. Authentic awakening is not a mass event. It just isn't. And it's never, I can't say never. I just can't say never. But I can tell you that up to now, it's not been a mass event on our planet. Up to now, it's not been. Whereas through this teaching with one-on-one, my numbers are not so great because I'm just doing it one at a time, but my percentages are incredible because people are waking up one right after the other, and virtually almost nobody isn't waking up. So, and I don't know what kind of percentages these teachers are going to have when they come out there. When I first started, I started out teaching. I was right from go. I was waking up 50% of the people I was talking to, which was the most fabulous thing I had ever imagined. It was better than anything I'd ever imagined, better than anything I'd ever heard of. And it was absolutely wonderful if you weren't sitting with the 50% of the people who didn't wake up. That was tough. So there was always increasing skillfulness, and there was always stuff arriving here. The living teaching, it's always changing. It's always changing. There's nothing solid. There's no center to this teaching. If there's no center, but there's a centerless center, which is that this teaching does not work with units. In a mass thing, there's a unit working with a bunch of unawakened units. The enlightened wonder is up there, and the unenlightened people like you and me, we're sitting out in our chairs or on our cushions or on the stadium seating, whatever you call that, and we're disappointed because we had thought that this would be the real opportunity for Fred to wake up, says Fred. But there's no Fred, so Fred couldn't wake up, and Fred can't know anything about enlightenment because there's no Fred. But there is enlightenment. But there more than enlightenment, there is awakening. And that's what I guess that's what I'm talking about with the wakefulness, is where an enlightenment experience, wakefulness, is that when enlightenment experience has occurred, awakening has occurred, but it's simply not current. But it's right underneath the surface. It's better than I was when I was in oscillation. I can tell you that. The people that I'm meeting today are much better shape than I was, and they don't need much to come back to brightness as a general rule, and sometimes they're back in a big way instantly. Who knows? So that's my report, and it's been a nice spending my Saturday with you. And now I'm going to go spend some Saturday night with my lovely wife and my beautiful dogs. And I'll see you again the next time you can come to visit Clarity.